Please go today. You are free to go and join them, but know that we will come for you. Option 3, you can choose to leave this place and never come back. Go elsewhere in Colombia. We don't care where. Just leave here. Option 4, you can choose to stay and not join us, but if you make that choice, you will choose to die. These are your 4 options. Join us, join them, leave, or die. There was kind of a stunned silence that settled across this mass of people listening to this, when out of the blue came a single voice. Now, if you could imagine what it must be like to be in a crowd where you actually wonder if in the next minute, for whatever reason, some set of these people with guns might just decide to do what they've already done in many places, and that is to create a massive killing and an open grave. And out of the blue comes this voice. I can imagine if I'm standing nearby, my head must jerk to see who it is that would have the nerve to say anything when you hear the voice, Capitan! Capitan, please! I beg to differ. And there, standing in his white cowboy hat that they wear in that area, straw hat, and about 6'2", thin, narrow fellow, about 42 years old, was Josue Vargas. Josue Vargas. Education maybe to the 8th grade. Campesino all his life. Basically had moved to this area when he was in his young years to plant plátano, bananas, papaya. Capitan, if I may, I need to differ. What do you have to forgive us? Explain it to me. I don't get it. We haven't killed anybody. We haven't kidnapped anybody. We haven't asked anybody to leave. And now you, with your guns, you're coming here to forgive us? Please, Captain. Guns. What have they served? Look at this country. We've had 35 years of war. There must be 4 or 5 major armed groups in a national army. There must be 120,000 men in arms. And what has it served? Show me one thing that it has increased the security of any community in this country. We don't need your guns. What we need are microcredits. We need a better road to take our agriculture at. We need you to be who you're supposed to be. But we don't need your guns. And Captain, if I may, I look around this plaza. I know every person by name. I know where they live. I know what's happened to them. I know where their families have disappeared. And we know you. You, Capitan, you used to be with the guerrilla. And now you're with the paramilitaries. And now you, a side switcher, you want us to join you? With all due respect, we are not going to join you. We are not going to join the other side. And we are not going to accept your weapons. And we are not going to leave this place. Today, we have decided to think for ourselves. Dead silence. Everybody waiting for the moment when the guns would go. But they didn't. Such was the weight, the moral weight of those words, that the captain backed down off the platform, retreated with his men and regrouped. And this little group of peasants began to meet. And in the coming weeks, they formed an association, a small association of workers from the Rio Carare. Workers and peasants from the Rio Carare is what they called it. They had some of the most bizarre ideas of anybody in Colombia. They started with the idea of a quota. How do you join our association? To join, you don't pay any money. You have to commit yourself to a single principle. And the principle was this: we will choose to die before we kill. That's the quota of entry. We will choose to die before we kill. Then they began with a series of community principles, how they would operate. For example, transparency. They would hold every meeting they ever had openly, transparently. Anybody could come, including the enemy. If the captain himself would like to come to one of their meetings, he was welcome, because what was talked there was talked honestly and openly about whatever it was that they were doing. There was to be nothing hidden. They set for themselves the principle of dialogue. And underlying the principle of dialogue was the notion that they would dialogue with every armed group in the area that at that point numbered 4. And in this principle of dialogue, they set for themselves a standard. We will find the way to understand those who do not understand us. We will find the way to understand those who do not understand us. They began what became one of the most extraordinary moments in Colombian history, which was that this group of peasants began open negotiations with the armed groups in the National Army. And in these negotiations, they espoused a single idea, that in the communities where they lived, people were welcome to come, but no guns would enter. In essence, they began to negotiate the very first, what they called, territory of peace, what subsequently has at times been come to call a peace zone, a declared area by the local community that would not have any weapons. There are photos in a couple of books that you will find with a little plaque handwritten with paint that says, "What the people of this community say." And basically it says, "You're welcome. Leave your guns outside the community." For the first time in that area, these people negotiated direct agreements from the community with the armed groups for how they would be treated in their own home communities. And they mobilized a capacity for dialogue that is nearly yet today unheard of in Colombia. 4 years later, 1992, Josue and 3 other of the leaders were assassinated. Within 2 days, 4 more leaders emerged, men and women, who took the leadership of this movement. And it has continued up until today. Not without difficulties, and not without the ups and downs of the Colombian context. This summer, when they spoke in the month of August, only a few weeks ago, they spoke of how difficult it was to do 2 things. The first, in the current process of the demobilization of the paramilitaries in Colombia, they were finding that they no longer had people with whom to negotiate, because people said, "We're no longer paramilitaries," even though they continue to act like them. And nobody was taking responsibility. Their big question, with whom do we negotiate when nobody takes responsibility? The second, the fumigation program against the coca plant, the planting of cocaine, the coca plant that produces cocaine. Fumigation has pushed a wide variety of rural groups into new areas of Colombia. And for the first time into this very remote rural area, coca was beginning to appear as the viable economic option. And they were facing the question, how do we deal with our own people who have given up hope that they can find economic viability in normal agriculture and are being wooed into the money available in the planning of COCA.